On Thanksgiving, my parents told me to give my entire bonus to my brother because he needs it more. I laughed and said, "That's funny because I have a surprise for you too." Their faces dropped when I opened my laptop and showed them. Before we begin the story, take a moment to support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Your support means the world to our channel and helps us spread more shocking, true stories to light. Now, let's get started. Thanksgiving was supposed to be a time for family, laughter, and way too much food. That's what it used to be for me. But this year was different. This was the day everything changed. The day years of favoritism, manipulation, and entitlement finally reached a breaking point. And for once, I wasn't the one getting screwed over. Growing up, I always knew I wasn't the favorite. That title belonged to my younger brother, Nathan. My parents adored him, spoiled him, shielded him from every bad decision he made. Meanwhile, I was the responsible one, the one who had to figure things out alone, the one who never asked for anything because I already knew the answer. Nathan needs it more. I worked my ass off to get where I am, paid my own way through college with scholarships, worked long hours, clawed my way up the corporate ladder. And finally, after years of grinding, I had a job that paid me what I was worth. This year, I got my biggest bonus yet. I didn't even tell my parents about it, but somehow they found out. We were all gathered at the Thanksgiving table, passing dishes around, making small talk, just another forced family gathering. Then my mom, with that sweet, syrupy voice she always used when she was about to ask me for something, looked at me and said, "So we were thinking, that's never a good start." She glanced at my dad before continuing, her tone laced with fake concern. "Since he got that big bonus this year, we figure it would be really helpful if you gave it to Nathan. He's been struggling so much lately." I blinked. I actually thought she was joking. I let out a short laugh and said, "That's funny because I have a surprise for you too." Their faces lit up just for a second, probably thinking I was about to say something generous. That's when I pulled out my laptop. And that's when everything changed. Everything changed. The second I opened my laptop, the entire room shifted. My mom's smile froze, halfway between delight and dread. My dad's face tensed, his jaw tightening like he already knew, deep down, this wasn't going to end well for them. And Nathan? Nathan had been sitting there with that smug little smirk he always had when he thought he was getting away with something. But as soon as he saw the screen, that smirk vanished. His face paled, his body tensed like a rat trapped in a corner. See, what they didn't know, what they never bothered to ask, was that I had been keeping track of everything. Every time they took money from me. Every time they borrowed something they never returned. Every excuse they made for Nathan while expecting me to be the responsible one. But that wasn't even the worst part. I had something bigger. Something that would make sure they never, ever asked me for another dime again. I took a deep breath, leaned back in my chair, and said, "I hope you're ready for this." Silence. My mom reached for her wine glass, her hands shaking. My dad just stared at the laptop, his grip on the table tightening. And Nathan? Nathan was already looking for an escape. His eyes darted around the room, his leg bouncing under the table. He always thought he was the smartest guy in the room. Always thought he could charm, manipulate, or bully his way out of any situation. Not this time. I let the silence stretch, let them sweat. Then, finally, I tapped the screen. "This," I said, my voice steady, "is every bank transfer I've ever sent you." Click. Every loan that was never paid back. Click. Every emergency bill you couldn't cover because Nathan needed help. Click. The numbers added up. Thousands. Tens of thousands. My mom opened her mouth, but I held up a hand. "I'm not done." I clicked the next file. "And this." I continued, glancing at Nathan. "This is Nathan's credit card history." Nathan sucked in a sharp breath. "How the hell did you?" I cut him off. "You're not as smart as you think you are." He had no idea I had access to his statements. No idea that while my parents had been crying to me about his financial struggles, he had been blowing money on bars, designer sneakers, and vacations. I had screenshots, Instagram posts of him flexing with bottles of champagne in nightclubs, trips to Miami, Vegas, Mexico. I even had a photo of him standing next to a brand new gaming setup, one that cost more than my rent. My mom turned to him, her voice barely above a whisper. Nathan, is this true? Nathan scoffed, rolling his eyes. It's not that serious. I laughed, a real bitter laugh. Oh, but it is. And do you know why? The truth they never saw coming. My dad, who had been silently clenching his jaw this whole time, finally spoke. His voice was low, dangerous. What else could there possibly be? Oh, Dad, you have no idea. I turned the screen back toward them, my fingers steady as I clicked on the next file. This, I said, locking eyes with my parents, is a record of the mortgage payments I made on this house. The one you told me was already paid off. Silence. Thick, suffocating silence. My mom's face went white. My dad exhaled slowly, gripping the table so tightly I thought he might flip it over. Yeah, that's right. I found out. See, about a year ago, they had come to me, crying, begging, saying they were in danger of losing the house. They swore it was just a rough patch, just a little help until they got back on their feet. I was hesitant, but they were my parents. And as much as I had grown used to their favoritism, I never wanted them to be homeless. So I paid, and paid, and paid. Then, one day I got curious. I did some digging, looked into some records, and I found out the truth. The house was never in danger. The money? Gone. And guess where it went? Nathan. My parents had funneled every single cent straight to him. For his struggles, his hard times, his vacations, his parties, his fun. I leaned back, crossed my arms, and looked them dead in the eye. So tell me again, I said, my voice cold. Why exactly should I give him my bonus? No one spoke. The room was so quiet I could hear the clock ticking in the kitchen. Then, finally, my dad muttered under his breath. You went behind our backs. I laughed. A sharp, humorless laugh. I went behind your backs. You stole from me. Nathan, who had been shifting uncomfortably in his seat, suddenly slammed his hand on the table. You're making a big deal out of nothing. And that's when my patience snapped. Nothing. I hissed. You lied to me. All of you. Over and over again. And you expected me to just keep giving? To hand over more money while you wasted on this loser? Nathan shot up from his chair. I'm not a loser. But before he could go off, my dad's voice cut through the room. Sit. Down. Nathan hesitated, chest heaving with anger. But something in my dad's tone made him think twice. He dropped back in his seat, fists clenched, seething. My mom reached for me then, her voice soft, pleading. Sweetheart, you don't understand. I yanked my arm away. No, you don't understand. I pointed at the laptop. I have proof. Every single thing you've done. I took a deep breath, then leaned in, my voice dropping to a deadly calm. And now, I whispered, now, you're going to pay me back. Their faces dropped even further. Yeah, they weren't expecting that. For the first time in my life, I had the power, and I wasn't done yet. Turning the tables. The air in the room had shifted. The power dynamic that had ruled my entire life, the one where I was the giver and they were the takers, was gone. And they knew it. My mom's face crumpled, but I wasn't falling for her fake tears this time. My dad sat stone-faced, calculating, probably trying to figure out a way to twist this in his favor. And Nathan? Nathan looked like he was about to explode. His fists were clenched, so tight his knuckles had turned white. Then, finally, my dad let out a slow, dry chuckle. And what if we don't? I smiled. Oh, I've been waiting for him to ask that. Wordlessly, I clicked on another file. Turned the laptop back around. Slid it across the table. Then, with complete calm, I said, then I send this to the IRS. My mom made a strangled, choking sound. My dad, he went completely still. And Nathan? He frowned, still trying to act like he was untouchable. The IRS? What the hell does that mean? I sighed dramatically, tapping the screen. It means, I said, my voice laced with mock patience, that our dear parents have been committing a little thing called tax fraud for the last 5 years. I watched as the color drained from my dad's face. Fake deductions, false income reports, and, oh, look at this, filing Nathan as a dependent even though he was making plenty of money under the table. Nathan's head snapped toward them. Wait, what? I nodded, smirking. Yeah, you were never as broke as they made you seem. In fact, at times, you were earning more than me. Nathan blinked, confused. But how? I shrugged. Cash jobs. no taxes, and our parents covered for you by committing fraud. For the first time since this all started, Nathan looked truly shaken. He turned to my dad, his voice rising. Dad, is this true? But my dad wasn't looking at him. He was looking at me. And for the first time in my life, I saw fear in his eyes. You don't want to do this, he said quietly. I tilted my head. Why not? His answer? Because we're family. I let out a bitter laugh. Family, I repeated. Family wouldn't have stolen from me. Family wouldn't have lied to my face for years. Family wouldn't have left me to struggle while they threw money at someone who refuses to grow up. Nathan suddenly stood, pointing a finger at me, his face twisted with rage. Oh, shut the hell up. You think you're so much better than me just because you work some boring office job? You think that makes you more deserving? I met his glare without blinking. Yeah, I said coldly. I do, because I earned it. My mom sobbed into her hands. My dad rubbed his temple, his face unreadable. And then something unexpected happened. Nathan laughed. A slow, ugly laugh that made my stomach turn. You really think you're going to win this? He asked, shaking his head. You think you're the only one with leverage? A bad feeling crept up my spine. What the hell are you talking about? Nathan's smirk widened. I guess it's time for my surprise. And then, right in front of me, he pulled out his phone. He tapped the screen a few times. Then he turned it toward me, and my stomach dropped. There on his phone was an email. An email from my company's HR department. I scanned it quickly. A formal complaint. Allegations of financial misconduct. Accusing me of using company funds for personal gain. It was fake. A goddamn setup. I looked up at Nathan in shock. And Nathan? He grinned. See? You weren't the only one planning ahead. My pulse hammered in my ears. If my company took this seriously, I could lose everything. My job, my career, everything I built. And the worst part? I could see it in my parents' faces. They knew. They had helped him. This wasn't just favoritism anymore. This was war. I stared at Nathan's phone, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. An email from HR. A formal complaint. Accusing me of financial misconduct. A setup. A goddamn setup. I slowly looked up at him. He was grinning. Smug. Confident. Like he had already won. See, he said, his voice dripping with satisfaction. You weren't the only one planning ahead. I inhaled sharply, forcing my face to stay neutral. Stay calm. Do not give him the reaction he wants. How long have you been planning this? I asked quietly. Nathan's smirk widened. Does it matter? You thought you were the only one playing the game. Guess what? You lost. I turned to my parents. My mom was staring at her lap, dabbing at her fake tears. My dad had his arms crossed, refusing to meet my gaze. And just like that, I had my answer. They knew. They had helped him. They were willing to destroy me to keep propping him up. I let out a small, disbelieving laugh. You really hate me that much? My mom gasped, all wide-eyed innocence. Sweetheart, no. We had to protect him. He's not as strong as you are. He wouldn't survive without us. I shook my head. You mean without me? Nathan scoffed. Oh, get over yourself. You act like you're so special just because you work some corporate job. I narrowed my eyes. That corporate job is the reason you still have a roof over your head, dumbass. Nathan rolled his eyes. You really think you're untouchable, don't you? That company loves me. You're replaceable. And once the complaint goes through, you're gone. Something inside me snapped. For years, I let them take from me. Money, time, energy, love. For years, I let them make me the responsible one. The one who always had to be the bigger person. The one who never fought back. But this was war. I sat back in my chair, crossed my arms, and exhaled. You want to play dirty? I said calmly. Fine. Let's play. Nathan opened his mouth, probably to say something cocky. But I cut him off. You didn't actually send that complaint yet, did you? He blinked. What? I smirked. Oh, I know you didn't send it yet. I pointed at the screen. It's still in draft mode. Nathan's smirk faltered. His fingers tightened around his phone before he quickly swiped it back. So what? I'll send it right now. I shrugged. Go ahead. He froze. I leaned in. Do it. His fingers hovered over the screen. Hesitation flickered across his face. And that's when I laughed. A deep, bitter laugh. You're bluffing. Nathan scowled. No, I'm not. Oh, but you are. I shook my head slowly, like I was disappointed in him. You thought you had leverage. You thought you could scare me with this little trick. But you don't even understand how corporate HR works. His smirk wavered. What the hell are you talking about? I leaned in closer. Do you really think my company would take an anonymous complaint at face value? Do you think they wouldn't investigate? Do you think they wouldn't track down exactly where it came from? His confidence cracked. I laughed again, softer this time. Oh, you idiot. Nathan shifted in his seat, trying to regain control. Even if they investigate, it'll still ruin your reputation. I shrugged. Maybe. Then my voice turned ice cold. But guess what? I have an actual lawyer. And do you know what's illegal, Nathan? Silence. I smiled knowingly. Filing a false report. Defamation. Corporate fraud. I have evidence that I've done nothing wrong. And if you send that complaint, I'll let the words sink in. I will sue you. Nathan stiffened. I turned to my dad. And let's not forget your situation. His jaw clenched. I tapped my laptop. All I have to do is send one email to the IRS. And you. I held his gaze, my next words slow. Deliberate. You're looking at an audit. Fines. Maybe even jail time. My mom gasped. You wouldn't. I tilted my head. Why not? You were ready to let Nathan ruin my career. Why should I protect you? Nathan slammed his fists on the table. You're just bluffing. I shrugged. Try me. Silence. A long, tense silence. For the first time in my life, they had no control. They were the ones panicking. I stood up slowly, packed up my laptop, and exhaled. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice calm, collected. You're going to drop this little plan of yours. You're going to stop asking me for money. And you're going to pay me back. All of it. My dad scoffed. And if we don't, I slung my bag over my shoulder. Then I smiled. Then I burned all down. I turned to leave. Then, my mom screamed. A broken sound that ripped through the dining room. You can't just walk away from us, she wailed. I turned back. My father sat stone-faced, his pride keeping him from begging. But my mom? She knew. She knew I was really leaving this time. She scrambled toward me, her voice desperate. We're family. We're all we have. I exhaled slowly. No. I looked her dead in the eyes. I was all you had. Then I turned to Nathan. He was shaking, fists clenched, fury in his eyes. But I didn't care. I met his glare with a calm, steady voice. And you. I let my words cut through the air. You're nothing to me now. For the first time, something flickered in his expression. Shock. Maybe even fear. But I didn't stay to watch. I walked to the door, stepped outside into the cold November air. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. Karma always comes around. I never went back. A month later, I got a notification. One of the payments I demanded had gone through. I didn't respond. I focused on myself, my future, my peace. And as for them, well, I heard from a cousin that the IRS did, in fact, come knocking. I never sent the email, but someone else must have. Funny how karma works. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe for more real-life family dramas. Let me know in the comments what you think about today's story. Was it fair or totally messed up? See you in next one.